nation from every aspect, from education to health to socio-economic issues, everything that matters and is worth talking about. This is where the frank and deep conversation happens. Speaking to critical stakeholders, policy makers, opinion molders, starting with you, you distinguished Nigerians, people living here in this country, always making it a day with us. Femi Ojo remains my name. By the way, this is the Holy Week, especially for the adherents of the Christian faith. And tomorrow will be a public holiday. But then the Holy Week is signals the Good Friday, as part of the Easter period. The Lenten season is almost over. And of course, Sunday will be Easter Sunday. Many persons are preparing for the festivities in their own right. People that have been fasting, observing the Lenten season will be rounding it off. The piety at this time, and the mood in which the Christian faith people who are adherents of the Christian faith, the lessons of this period, we hope it transcends into what will be, what they say about righteousness, exalting a nation, that we will have a nation that we are proud of, and it will show so that we are not just a group of religious people. But then the prophet in the Bible, one of them is Daniel. But then I have mine here. Daniel, good morning.
Good morning, Femi.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Very well, very great.
Good to see you.
Absolutely.
How was your night?
Oh, great. We thank God. We keep surviving as Nigerians. Like some people will say, they will say they are surviving in Nigeria. So right. In solidarity with every other Nigerian, right. I mean, and again, on the part of those who have been experiencing attacks, several attacks, we've had another one in Benue State. Some right. people have fled their communities because of incessant attacks. Quite unfortunate one there. But again, we are still glad to be alive. Always a pleasure to be here to start your mornings, to kickstart your mornings with the best of news and insightful analysis. Emeka Daniel is my name. Thank you once again for joining us on Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. It promises to be a wonderful show as usual. You do not want to miss any part of it.
Right. You were just talking about attack at different parts of the country, and it's quite worrisome.
Absolutely. Quite worrisome. And the one that happened in Plateau, the most recent one, that they killed over 40 people in some reports. The governor actually visited some of the communities, and he owned up. He said, he apologized actually. He said, they have failed the people. According to him, he said, we have failed you once again. Because it's quite unfortunate. After the first one happened about 2 weeks ago, they came out to say that, oh, this will not happen again. We've taken measures to prevent this. Then it happened again. But this time, the interesting part is that the recent attacks that occurred in Plateau actually took place close to a military base. Okay, a Punch correspondent visited the place and said, this place is just 5 kilometers away from a military base. So what happened? How can such a scale of attack be going on here and the military base is right there? No response from them. Now, one begins to question the rationale behind all this.
Right.
Is it that the military were not, of course, they were invited, they were called, according to some reports, but there was no response. That brings again to question this theory that some people are putting forward that this is political. How can you be having such attacks close to a military base and they cannot respond? Because again, if you put it to the military men, they will tell you they are prepared, they are ready. But if they don't receive orders to move in, that they cannot move in.
Right.
So one begins to wonder what exactly is going on in Nigeria and especially in Plateau State. And we do hope steps are taken to make sure the perpetrators are brought to book. Not just apologizing, the governor has apologized, but again, your apology will not bring back those who have lost their lives. So it's quite unfortunate.
Right. So it's good to own up, but then I agree with you, it won't bring back, because if it happens today, you visit again and then you apologize. To what end? That's the thing. It's not just apologizing, but then finding out who this culprits are actually, and not just to, just to do it the way we have always been doing it. I think it's high time we became ruthless to these people, very ruthless with them, so that everybody that wants to do such will know that Nigeria is not the safe place for them to do any of that, because it seems they're having a field day. They are just roaming around, doing whatever. How can you explain what happened 2 weeks ago? Because of people dying. A few days ago, because of people have died in the same state. And of course, across the border there, right in Benue, something like that has happened. And it will give rise to that congestion, to every kind of, conspiracy. Some persons have been saying this is possibly land grab in Asia. Some have been saying this is genocide. So it's just an intentional wiping off of some group of people. To what end? Who are they? The people. I was listening to one of the lawmakers at the National Assembly yesterday who comes from Plateau State, Honorable Gaji, who said, it might be political, it might not, but many persons are beginning to reason with him. Heads have not been rolling. There are people that are saddled with the responsibility of keeping the people.
Absolutely.
Keep safeguarding the people. You have a duty, either as, army or the police or whatever. In as much you have a function, you have a duty to keep the people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 50 people are being killed. And then the next 2 weeks, those people will come back, or another set of criminals will come back to go and kill the same people. And no one has been identified, called to question, to say, why have you lost it? What happened? From the rank and file to the officers. Nobody. That's another angle to look at it. This thing will keep happening. When people know that irrespective of what happened, their job is safe. They won't be demoted. There won't be questions. Questioned. Nobody will lose anything. And then it's just apology. Oh, we are sorry. We have failed you. Would that bring back the breadwinner of a house? Would that bring back the pregnant woman that was ripped into pieces? I think there's another conversation that we must have.
Absolutely.
The CNC somewhere giving orders. He gave orders 2 weeks ago. Oh, go after them. Perpetrators will be punished. Now, we can't hear one perpetrator, that has been identified and up for prosecution. But beyond that, the issue of people being called to question, if actually you have a duty to do, and then you have failed.
Absolutely. No one has taken responsibility. Nobody. And it's quite unfortunate for me. I was going through some of the accounts, eyewitness reports, and it's quite unfortunate. I mean, they were there, they were helpless, they were making calls to people, calling their relatives who are in Jos and other parts of Plateau State and outside Plateau State, and they could do nothing. There was nothing they could do. And they said some eyewitness reports rather claim that some of these men, that they actually saw them, that they were Fulani men. That's according to some eyewitness reports, that they saw them, that some of them were actually in military uniform. Imagine that. Wow. So, of course, the military will tell us that they are not real military men. Anybody can actually wear camouflages. That's the point. So they saw them. They said some of them were Fulani men, some of them were in military uniform, some of them were in mufti, and they came and they carried out the operation without anybody injuring them. There was this case, Femi, very harrowing, bizarre case.
It is.
They went to a house. They were trying to break down the door. They couldn't break down the door. There were 6 children in the house. So when they couldn't gain access, they burned the house with the children. So the children were burned alive right there. And we have cases, different cases. So it's quite unfortunate. We hope the federal government of Nigeria and the president, and some people have been calling on the president, see, insecurity is rising in Nigeria, and you are there in France doing what exactly? So notable Nigerians have been calling on Mr. President, you need to fix the security challenges in Nigeria. It is your responsibility to protect the lives of Nigerians, not just moving around, going on working visits. So whatever you call it, as some may say, to other countries. So Mr. President, please step up and fix this once and for all.
All right. Exactly. And it's one that doesn't give anybody, the fact that you're not in Plateau, I always say this, or you're not in Benue, or you're not in Borno, or you're not in Yobe, and you're in different parts of the country, just like we are, doesn't mean you should have your 2 eyes closed when you're sleeping, because you don't know what might happen. We'll go on this quick break, and then we'll return. The people are in. All right. and we kickstart the newspaper segment for today from the Daily Sun. The Daily Sun newspaper, 2027 election, Atiku leaves options open. 2027 election, Atiku leaves options open. With riders, says will ride on any good governance vehicle. Says will ride on any good governance vehicle, whatever that vehicle is. We wait. Claims Nigeria in full-blown state of emergency. Claims Nigeria in full-blown state of emergency. These are the thoughts of the Waziri of Adamawa Atiku Abubakar. Really? All right, turn away from that. Tourism. Ipa gets new lawyers. Case begins again. You remember him, Simon Ipa, right in Finland, who has been very involved in the agitation, happening in the southeast. And some persons have always called for him to be repatriated, face the full wrath of the law based on some of the things he has said in the past that has been seen as being inciting. Now he has another lawyer. A new lawyer as his case begins in June. Now, Lagos Assembly Court declares Obasa's removal illegal, voids assembly proceedings. It is what it is. Lagos Assembly Court declares Obasa's removal illegal, voids assembly proceedings. And if you need the detail, what really voided that proceeding, you might want to take a look at this paper. Rivers emergency rule, reps summon Ibas. Right, Rivers emergency rule, reps summoned Ibas with rider, sole administrator denying summoning Fubara and warns against fake news. There were a news item yesterday when the social media went agog with a purported summoning of Sim Fubara, the suspended governor, by the sole administrator to come and answer for some things that have happened. And I think the sole administrator has denied that, say, fake. But then he has been summoned by the House of Representatives. And these are some of the issues we are seeing at this time. Trade imbalance threatening Nigeria-China currency swap deal, CBN. Trade imbalance threatening Nigeria-China currency swap deal, CBN. When you talk about China and their, the back and forth with the US on the tariff thing, the last time we talked there, we were talking about maybe how further up or down can these back and forth between US, world number one and world number two, economically speaking, will go. Yesterday we saw another, a directive from the US, 245% tariff, 245% tariff. And the question is, it seems the rest of the world are just looking with their hands on their cheek to say, you guys should just go ahead with whatever you want to do. And if you are talking about a new world order, maybe we have it right now.
Trump really means business with China. It really means he's not backing down. He's not backing down at all.
And I think China are ready for whatever is bringing.
Absolutely. But China actually tried to make a truce saying, hey, let's stop this. Let's stop this. But again, it's not by what you say. It's about your actions. So Trump strongly believes that China has no respect for world trade. So he's determined to break that monopoly.
And the question is, monopoly where? How?
No, he believes China is doing too much. They have no respect for world trade. Of course, when it comes to trade, you just talked about Nigeria-China bilateral trade, the trade imbalance. It's very clear. I mean, what's the value? What's the value of what Nigeria is importing from China compared to what Nigeria is exporting?
Who has appointed the US the police of the world? That has always been the question.
Well,
who decides?
If you ask Trump, he will tell you he's just trying to protect his people.
Then
he's trying to make America great again.
The rest of the world. That's what I'm saying. Is that the thought of the UK? Is that the thought of Zambia? Is that the thought of Nigeria? Is that the thought of Finland and other world powers to think China is doing too much? But whatever, the rest of the world will wait to see what they are doing. But then while they are waiting, I think every other country, like the rest of Africa, should just find a way to align or realign themselves so that their people will not suffer for this, because China can take care of its business. Absolutely. The US can take care of its business. How about the rest? Because the rest that might be forced to pick a side in all of these issues. We must know our population, says Tinubu. Inaugurates the National Census Committee. We must know our population, says Tinubu. Inaugurates the National Census Committee. And Igbo traditional rulers rise up against insecurity. I think everybody should rise and take the gun, gauntlet rather, not the literal gun, literary gun rather. So that will be all from the Daily Sun.
From the Daily Sun newspaper, we move to the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Federal government makes peace move to Niger Republic. Federal government makes peace move to Niger Republic. With the rider, Tugar meets with country's delegation in Niamey. Tugar meets with country's delegation in Niamey. That's the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tugar, who arrived in Niamey, Niger on Tuesday, just to strengthen bilateral relations, diplomatic relations with Niger. You would recall that diplomatic relations have been strained for a while now, especially after Niger pulled out of ECOWAS. Niger, of course, Burkina Faso and Mali, these countries pulled out of ECOWAS. Now Nigeria is trying to strengthen ties with Niger right there. So let's see how that plays out. Moving to the top strip of the Daily Trust newspaper. CPC Group affirms loyalty to APC. Tinubu amid defection speculations. CPC Group affirms loyalty to APC. Tinubu amid defection speculations. There's been worries in some quarters that the CPC Group might actually leave the APC entirely. So people have been making different visits to the former president, Buhari, and all that, trying to let him, convince his people not to leave the APC. But now the CPC Group is affirming that they are not going to leave. Let's hope they live up to their words right there. Away from that, filling stations yet to adjust as Dangote reduces petrol price again. Filling stations yet to adjust as Dangote reduces petrol price again. I remember I mentioned it here the last time we talked about this. When ex-depot prices, Dangote reduced ex-depot prices, that's gantry price, from 885, I guess, to 865, 860 to 865, 880 rather to 865. That's a 15 naira reduction. Now Dangote has reduced price again by 30 naira, 3.5%, from 860 to 830. Is it 860? There's a 30 naira reduction anyways. I guess it's from 860 to 835. There are about 865 to 830, I guess. So that's exactly what's happening. So let's see what happens whether filling stations will reduce their pump price. Because I said it here. Let's see how it trickles down to the citizens, how it will affect the pump price of petrol. Now we understand that filling stations are yet to adjust their pump price. And we really need to do that because oil prices have crashed worldwide. Global oil prices have crashed to about $64 per barrel from over $70. That's why Dangote is reducing his own prices. And of course, it should trickle down to the ordinary citizens. Away from that, EFCC launches manhunt for CBEX promoters, vows to recover investors' money. EFCC launches manhunt for CBEX promoters, vows to recover investors' money. The spokesman of the EFCC made a comment and said that investors will get their funds back, that is from the CBEX Ponzi scheme that crashed, saying that they were actually on top of their game. They were monitoring it right from the beginning, that they were not surprised, that they've been monitoring the whole thing, that they are working with Interpol to ensure that investors get their money. But I really hope the EFCC can pull this out, because from reports we have, those funds were actually moved to a private Ethereum wallet. So we really hope they can do that. But of course, EFCC cannot do that alone. They will need the help of the international community, of the Interpol and other tech organizations in order to recover those funds back. So let's just hope. CBEX investors, just be hopeful. You might just get your funds back. Away from that, still on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, You see the picture right there of that's of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. That's Yusuf Tugar, right there in Niger, trying to strengthen bilateral ties. Beneath that, we have villagers rather, flee as gunmen attack Benue communities again. Villagers flee as gunmen attack Benue communities again. Quite an unfortunate one right there. People having to leave their communities as a result of insecurity. We just talked about that at the beginning of the program. On the bottom strip of the Daily Trust newspaper, Boko Haram kills 6 in attacks on Adamawa communities. Still talking about insecurity. Boko Haram kills 6 in attacks on Adamawa communities. 2027 will ride any vehicle that guarantees good governance. That's according to Atiku. 2027 will ride any vehicle that guarantees good governance at Atiku. You would recall that Atiku, as the presidential candidate of the PDP at the 2023 general elections, has been trying to make moves to form a coalition of political parties. The governors of PDP had a meeting and they distanced themselves from that position, saying, we are not interested. Now Atiku is saying that they would do anything. The coalition actually, they made a statement yesterday and they said that the governors might actually be playing the spoilers game for Tinubu, unknowingly, just trying to crash the party. Let's see how that plays out. So different allegations here and there. Now, Atiku is saying that he's going to ride on any vehicle that guarantees good governance. Perhaps he's hinting he might actually be moving to another party. Who knows? Away from that, 36 cows killed, 42 poisoned in Plateau as governor bans night grazing. 36 cows killed, 42 poisoned in Plateau as governor bans night grazing. You find a story on page 51 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And that'll be all from the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
From the Daily Trust to the Guardian newspaper, national headcount, insecurity, economic concerns trail Tinubu's push for fresh census. National headcount, insecurity, economic concerns trail Tinubu's push for fresh census. And then you have the data here. Population at last count in 2006 was put at 440 million. And the current estimated population currently stands at 236.52 million. 236.52 million people living in Nigeria. And more persons since 2006 has been put at the addition of people rather to the last count, even if it's just postulations or estimations rather, has been put at 96.5 million people, and per capita income is still $835, and population growth rate 2.5%, life expectancy in Nigeria 54.6%, 54.6 years rather, less than 55 years. Interesting. That's life expectancy. Now, GDP growth rate is at 3.4%. GDP growth rate 3.4%, and literacy rate 62%. Percentage. Now that the president is interested in having a committee, to plan and to execute the next census national headcount. Now, still about the killings in Benue, fresh killings in Benue. Community claim 10. You can see the picture of the governor, Yasin Talia, Reverend Father there, the governor of the state, REA, Lagos to replace over 4 million generators with rooftop solar. Lagos to replace over 4 million generators with rooftop solar. Free of charge? You wait to see. Lukman alleges PDP governance aiding Tinubu as Atiku intensifies coalition agenda. Lukman alleges PDP governance aiding Tinubu as Atiku intensifies coalition agenda. Maybe this is not unconnected, to what happened in Akwa Ibom, where Governor Umoina you know, was saying, talking about 8 years for the president, that the work that the president has started, he will complete it. And the 8 years is sacrosanct. That is a governor of the PDP.
Of the PDP. And that's what the AC, that's what the coalition is saying now. That it seems these PDP governors are actually working for the president, either knowingly or unknowingly.
All right. And reps summon sole administrators, Rivers women demand end to emergency rule. And below that, federal government launches plan, approves 15 billion naira to curb flood disasters. Federal government launches plan and approves 15 billion naira to curb flood disaster. Is always a terrible time when you see pictures of communities that have been affected by flood and you are seeing their higher view rather. You don't want to be in that kind of a situation. Let's do all we can, especially state government, to take responsibilities, and people should cooperate as well, especially those on the lowlands, in the lowlands rather. Now, don't lose faith in democracy. INEC chairman tells African youth. Interesting. Don't lose faith in democracy. INEC chairman tells African youth. I think the INEC chairman has a lot of explanation, a lot of conviction or convincing to do, especially for the Nigerian youth.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially with what happened with the last election, rightly or wrongly, many persons are skeptical about the democracy that we are practicing now. Here, time 100. Time 100. You can see the delectable Mo Abudu and making the Times 100 most influential people in the world. That's quite a big one. Abudu makes Times 100 most influential people in the world. Time 100 for 2025. You know, quite enigma she is, especially in the media. She has, you know, she deserves whatever she's getting right now. And the top trip, suspend France trip to address insecurity. Obi tells Tinubu, suspend France trip to address insecurity. Obi tells Tinubu. And federal government World Bank in fresh $17 billion poverty reduction deal. World Bank again. Federal government World Bank in fresh $17 billion poverty reduction deal. And lastly, Dangote crashes petrol price by 30 naira per litre, refines 3.5 billion litres in 7 months. Dangote crashes petrol price by 30 naira per litre. That means on a litre he has reduced 30 naira and refines 3.5 billion litres in 7 months. I'm sure Nigerians will say, thank you, kind of thank you. But then imagine you are seeing like a 200 naira reduction per litre, something significant. And I think it will go a long way. Possibly, last time I saw a filling station, the price around here, you know, should be around 920 and 930 naira per litre. So imagine you have a 200 naira reduction and it crashes to like 720, 730. That would be very
that would be meaningful. And like you said, some are saying thank you. But again, some Nigerians will say, does Dangote really have a choice? Fine, he has reduced prices from 880 at first to 865, 15 naira the reduction, then from 865 to 835, 30 naira reduction. Fine, very good. But again, oil prices have dropped. Okay, global oil prices have crashed, so he doesn't really have a choice. He has to reduce. What we need to see is reduction in pump price.
Right,
to
that would be all
users.
from this end.
We move straight to the front page of the Punch newspaper. Let's check out some of the stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper. 800 naira per litre petrol in sight as oil prices fall. 800 naira per litre petrol in sight as oil prices fall. We're just talking about that right now. Now this report is saying perhaps we might just see 800 naira per litre, and that will be nice to some extent. With the rider, PMS drops again as Dangote cuts ex-depot rate to 835 naira per litre. Crude now $65 per barrel from $75 per barrel. That's talking about global crude price right now. So let's hope that we see 800 naira per litre very soon. Still on the front page of the Punch newspaper, moving to the top strip now. EFCC, SEC move to dismantle Ponzi schemes. Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Securities and Exchange Commission move to dismantle Ponzi schemes. You'll find that on page 26 of the Punch, 29 rather, of the Punch newspaper. Away from that, Tinubu's France retreat sparks backlash amid rising insecurity. Tinubu's France retreat sparks backlash amid rising insecurity. A lot of Nigerians, well-meaning Nigerians, have been calling on the president to cut short his visit to France and return to Nigeria. But again, he was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. It was supposed to be a 2 weeks working visit. So ideally by now, 2 weeks should have elapsed. So let's see. We don't really know. We've not heard anything from the presidency in response to that. Away from that, Plateau killings. Police arrest key suspects. Governor bans night grazing. Plateau killings. Police arrest key suspects. Governor bans night grazing. Moving away from that to other stories now, still on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Northern governors in joint push against resurgent attacks. Northern governors in joint push against resurgent attacks. You find that on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. And right at the middle of the page, you'll see a picture of women protesting in Rivers. Emergency rule. Rivers women protest again. Reps panel summons EBAS. Emergency rule. Rivers women protest again. Reps panel summons EBAS. That's I'm talking about Vice Admiral EBAS, the sole administrator of Rivers State, has been summoned by the Reps panel for oversight function to question him. Who knows? Away from that, moving to the bottom strip of the Punch newspaper. 2027 coalition to unseat Tinubu gaining ground, says Atiku. 2027 coalition to unseat Tinubu gaining ground, says Atiku. You find that on page 37 of the Punch newspaper. Away from that, hundreds of Boko Haram suspects arrested in Lagos. Hundreds of Boko Haram suspects arrested in Lagos. That's according to the Civilian Joint Task Force, CJTF. You find that story on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. And finally, from the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning, Nigeria cuts power supply to Niger Republic. Nigeria cuts power supply to Niger Republic. Now, this is quite interesting because this is happening at a time when the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tugar, is actually in Niger trying to strengthen bilateral ties, trying to strengthen diplomatic ties. And now we're hearing that Nigeria has cut power supply to Niger Republic. You find that story, read more about that story on page 11 of the Punch newspaper. And that'll be all from the Punch newspaper this morning. That brings us to a conclusion on the newspaper review segment this morning on the show. We'll take a short break right now. When we return, the program continues. Stay with us.